government says it has taken steps to address issues of multiple taxation, infrastructural and other impediments to smooth operation of airlines in the country with the inauguration of a presidential task force. The Minister of State Aviation, Hadi Sirika, emphasized the need to maintain global service standards.
This is not the first time that this kind of committee has been set. I remember some years ago that when the committee set up for similar purpose.
The task force set up on the directive of the presidency has the mandate to negotiate bilateral air services agreement, BASA. And the federal government says it is ready to deal with any importer or marketer who engages in selling or distribution of fake and substandard seeds to farmers. This is coming as the government is set to strengthen her seeds distribution network nationwide.
NDFC provided the use of registered and accredited dealers in the country to some agencies whose activities involve supply of artificial seeds. Some of the agencies, including government-funded agencies.
When crises erupt in any nation, the youth are believed to be the most affected, and when they take a stand, their position to a great extent tends to take preeminence over others. This is why Nigerian youth under the ages of Youth of Peace stage a walk in Abuja to register their support for the indivisibility of Nigeria.
Youths from all parts of Nigeria have decided on their own to live in peace in Nigeria, and no power, no person, no devil, no demon can divide us. By the grace of God, we are taking it to the all socio-political zone of the country. From the socio-political zone, then we are stepping to all the 36 states.
Well, despite the warnings of dangers, agony and even death experienced by those who are trafficked or voluntarily decide to go abroad illegally for greener pastures, the crisis of human trafficking appears to be far from over, as many young people still try to embark on this dangerous adventure. Correspondent Makut Simon Macham caught up with two victims of human trafficking in Edo State who were repatriated back to Nigeria and are undergoing rehabilitation.
They told me I was going to Germany, that if I get to Germany, I'm going there to school. They never told me it was prostitution. And that was when they told many girls I met there. So when I was in Libya, they sold me in Libya in a flat where they bring different kinds of guys inside. They will sleep with you, pay you just money that is not even close to 2,000 naira in Nigeria, 1,000 naira in Nigerian money. So the suffering there was really hell. We will do it because it's do or die.
There are confirmations that high blood pressure remains the most silent factor responsible for the death of both the old and young, without a majority even knowing about this. Timothy Yusuf reports on a walk for life and free medical check held in Abuja as part of efforts to increase awareness on the health challenge.
Just one day he slumped and he had a stroke because we weren't aware that he was hypertensive, and it was just a waste. For what? Because we didn't take our 10 minutes to check our blood sugar and our blood pressure. So we just feel that this shouldn't happen. No young person should go just like that.
Millions of Nigerians are hypertensive and little of them know. And among those that know, just a few are on medication.
The Minister of State for Aviation, Hadi Sirika, has urged Saudi Arabia to take advantage of investment opportunities currently available in Nigeria. The Minister of State was speaking during the 87th National Day celebration of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in Abuja.
If we can have a national commission between Nigeria and the US, for example, there's nothing stopping us from having one between us and Saudi Arabia. At least we even trade in a common item, which is the oil, and so on and so forth. And I could see that Saudi Arabia currently conditioning the airports, that's what concerns me, and they did it very well. So I think that I'll borrow from that.
That's the news for now. Good morning, Nigeria. We'll be back after this break.
Unemployment, notably youth unemployment, features strongly in our party's manifesto. We intend to attack the problem promptly through revival of agriculture.
Is being a long road. Actually, I bought an acre of land for 60k like 2012, and presently I have a cassava farm and a yam farm.
or Lagos, business or holiday, home or office, you can now carry out your tax transactions from anywhere in the world. You can now file all your tax returns, pay online, get a receipt, and even process your tax clearance certificate from anywhere in the world online and in real time. All you need to do is log on to www.firs.gov.ng and click on e-services and be introduced to the world of innovation, convenience, and transparency from the FIRS. You can also pay stamp duty as you register a new company with the CAC or for other transactions that require stamp duty payment online. You can also file your withholding tax returns and determine the withholding tax deducted from you is in government coffers so that you can get your receipt within 4 to 5 days as long as the deduction has been remitted. Yes, all of this and more online at www.firs.gov.ng/e-services. FIRS, making tax administration as easy as ABC. Please note that all FIRS services are free of charge. This message is from the Federal Inland Revenue Service. It pays to pay your tax.
Whenever pain occurs, you want quick relief. Try new Nurofen Express. It goes to the source of pain and gets to work in under 15 minutes. That's why Nurofen Express delivers fast and effective relief. New Nurofen Express works at the source of pain. Fast.
Being a mom is great, but when your child has a fever, you don't know what to do. I trust Nurofen for Children to take care of my child's pain and fever.
Effective relief you can trust.
This is the game I've been waiting for, and I get a headache. But I remembered Mom's advice. Son, don't let anything stop you, okay? When headache strikes, I always trust Sudrex. Because Sudrex acts fast to relieve headache. Sudrex, in your day.
What makes a Nigerian mom powerful?
I encourage my kids to learn new things, and if they get hurt, I rely on the power of my Dettol's One Capful to fight germs.
My family needs protection from germs. I use the power of Dettol's One Capful to disinfect surfaces and clothes.
I trust the power of Dettol's One Capful for bathing. The power of Dettol's One Capful protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Be a powerful Nigerian mom with Dettol.
Money in uniform cycles, but traveling abroad is an aim.
All you have to do is just look for a way to smuggle into America.
Wow, for real? What will you be engaged in there?
Hit the streets of Massachusetts in high spirit, pop champagne.
And most importantly, how will you travel?
Call Samson.
Call Samson. How genuine documentation be?
Samson will not cause this out.
What means are you going?
Countless African immigrants perished while trying to cross over from Libya to Italy just a few days ago.
I Must Travel is the title of this week's very funny and educating episode of a mid-cracking comedy. Professor John Keep it
8 of us see how far Flash and Samson get in the quest to travel at all costs.
Over and out.
Brought to you by Glow,
the largest data network. Glow Unlimited.
Now let's turn to business. Monetary Policy Committee meeting kicks off today with experts anticipating favorable economic decisions. Plus, economic analysts call for a more structured tax regime to sustain growth in the Nigerian economy. Details on business news with Joy Uzo.
Hello and a warm welcome to Business News. As the Monetary Policy Committee (MPC) meets this week, the financial and business community will be waiting with anticipation for the outcome of the meeting, considered one of the most important and symbolic meetings of the committee in recent times. This is because it is happening at a time when Nigeria is just coming out of economic recession. And as the Federal Inland Revenue Service introduces new strategies to get more Nigerians into the tax nets, economic analyst Hassan Sadiq Arivi has called for a more structured tax regime to sustain the economy. He believes the tax nets should be expanded to accommodate more taxpayers, saying Nigeria's huge population is an added advantage that can be leveraged on to generate internal revenue to fund budgetary allocations.
About last month, the FRS claimed they've already realized almost 2.something trillion in a few quarters, which means before the end of the year, they might realize up to 3 to 4 trillion. You can now see that if you widen the scope, there will be more that we can achieve from inflow of internal revenue generations, which that can help to finance our internal budget. Then most of the money will earn from abroad, forex, dollar, oil and all that. That can be invested in energy, because without energy there's no way we can move the way we wanted to move in terms of being industrialized nations, because energy is cardinal. For example, we are talking of agriculture. Most of the states who are already investing now in rice productions. Now, by the time most of the states are producing, the farmers produce a lot of rice. How do you manage? This is where the energy comes.
Arimo Michael Kayode, on the other hand, urged relevant government authorities to ensure the collected taxes are judiciously used. He called for transparency and accountability in handling taxpayers' money, in line with the drive of the present administration.
The little we are getting, let's account for it. Let that accountability be there first. I live in a house where I've stringed electricity by myself, right? And pay bills to NEPA or pay bills to PHCN. Where's accountability? And what happens when impacts are not felt is monies are not being used to achieve what they were meant to be achieved. Who checks it? We need that accountability first before now saying, okay, that's when you can really know our shortfalls. Then you can really know by how much you can increase the tax net.
The federal government recently launched the Voluntary Assets and Income Declaration Scheme, VAIS. This is an initiative designed to encourage voluntary disclosure of previously undisclosed assets and income for the purpose of payment of all outstanding tax liabilities. We now bring you a graphic summary of trading figures from the Nigerian stock market last Friday. And that's it on Business News. Good Morning Nigeria continues.
Thank you very much, Jerizo. Up next is a newspaper review.
And
Another newspaper reviewer, Abayo Atoyabe, is already here in the studio. Abayo, this is in the morning.
Yes.
You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Claire. How are you today?
We're good.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay, for the Independent report, let's start off with the lead story. Independent newspaper, Governor APC chiefs vow to block Modushari's return to party. That's the rest starting right on the front page, so continues on page 5. But just above that is the story on oil and gas. Iran wants OPEC to ask Nigeria and Libya to cut output. More details on page 4 of the newspaper. Now, let's move it further now. Man abandons wife for giving birth to triplets. More details on page 12. I was offered bribe to kill the PI, that's the petroleum industry billionaire, says Senate Committee Chairman. Find more details on page 4. Flood sacks 12 communities and destroys about 3,000 farmlands in Cross River. And the photograph there is that of the IDPs as internally displaced persons during a protest demanding voluntary return to their homes in Bama local government area, Maiduguri, on Sunday. IDPs protest poor conditions and food shortage in camp. There's a rider, 1,600 alleged Boko Haram terrorists to go on trial come October 9. And still looking at that particular story is on the front page, or is a lead story for leadership newspaper. Quickly now to the leadership. Federal government begins trial, but this time around the number here is increased. Federal government begins trial of 2,540 Boko Haram terrorists, October 9. Two riders to that. CJ assigns cases to 4 federal high court judges. Legal aid continue to defend suspect. And Chibok boy Ali Amadu walks again after spinal cord surgery in Dubai.
All right, now let me have to come in at this point. After that, we can.
I want to talk about the Chibok boy, the 6-year-old boy. You recall him, he suffered spinal cord injury, and he was almost left for dead. Now he survived 5 hours of surgery and also 48 hours of intensive care. The doctors gave him at least a period of about 4 weeks before he would start walking. Guess what? After 7 days, the boy got out of the bed and started walking, and he said, I want to go back to Chibok and join Boys Brigade.
Yes, he said that. That was his joy. Yes, you remember I told us here that I covered the part about him leaving Nigeria for Dubai, and I asked him, and he said he loves to beat drums, so he always wants to be part of the Boys Brigade. And really, it's a miracle. Yes, just what we have just stated.
It's a miracle, and his recuperation rate was wonderful. And all this was put together by a global initiative for peace and love, coordinated by another foundation, which is a Sanomi Foundation. They also expressed their gracious appreciation to Dr. Bukola Saraki and the media for bringing the plight of the boy to Nigerians.
Yeah. All right, now
very cheering news.
Now let's look at the new Telegraph for today. Above the nameplate said got $10 million to kill a petroleum governance bill. That's the committee's chairman. I was offered $1 bribe. That's what he says. That's the actually chairman of that committee. And the story is on page 4 of New Telegraph. And just below the nameplate, we have a number of striking headlines there. Gunmen kill 3 policemen, abduct director in Edo State. It's on page 7. The Nigerian media still in recession, says NGE on page 2. All right, now on the economy, I will show Sukuk not meant to Islamize Nigeria. That's on page 6 of the Telegraph. And then budget. Buhari to send environment request to National Assembly. It's on page 6. And the main headline this morning on New Telegraph is banks place 13 tank farms, filling stations on sale. With the 2 riders there, mansions, exotic cars on seized, collateral list. Anti-graft war scares potential buyers. That's on page 2. And now there's a photograph there. That photograph, you could see the boy that we just talked about, that 6-year-old Boko Haram victim that we all talked about now. You can see him there smiling. You can get the story on page 9 actually on the Telegraph. But then the photograph that is also there, the larger one, the IDPs protesting Morigo demand a return to Bama. That's on page 2. And below that, Biafra. IPO registered in California, says the presidency, and says the EU, US lack power to decide for Nigeria. Group to drag Buhari, Buratai to ICC, that's the International Court of Alright, that's a European Court. It's on page 4. And then we have the fruit of the Telegraph. Fresh hope for HIV patients after scientific breakthrough. For more information on that, go to page 10 of New Telegraph. Now we have to come in here.
Yes, let's talk about the debt-owed banks. The property stamp funds were collaterals to loans totaling about $600 million that the various organizations got from the banks. Now the banks want to recover, and therefore what they provided as collateral now becomes the property of the bank to sell to recover their money. Well, the war against corruption is also another impetus here now, because if you come out to buy, people are reluctant to come out to buy because they fear that they might be asked how they got the money. Yes, I didn't say it. The issue about terrorism is becoming a catchphrase now. The Academic Staff Union has described the University of Ilorin as a terrorist organization. Because why? The University of Ibadan, ASU, says that the Ilorin devised several means to suppress legitimate industrial activities needed to expose corruption. However, as far as industrial relations are concerned, University of Ilorin is renowned for one of those that never joined all the university in the strike, and that has actually improved the profile of that university. Another issue of terrorism came from Senator Shehu Sani. He visited the Director General of the National Agency for Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons and says that trafficked persons across the desert to Libya are being used for terrorist activities in Libya. Over the weekend, a newspaper published that the United States Embassy has said that the U.S. government does not view IPOB as a terrorist group. However, what was credited to the spokesperson of the embassy was not reported in full. What he said was that the independent people, IPOB is not a terrorist organization under U.S. law. It may be recalled that the United States had in several occasions listed organizations that it considers terrorist group within its nation. In Nigeria, a competent court of jurisdiction has proclaimed the independent people of Biafra and a terrorist organization. The process to reverse that is either the court reverse itself or a superior court pronounce the opposite of that pronouncement. Meanwhile, the spokesman for the U.S. Embassy, his name is Russell Bruce, he even said United States was committed to Nigeria's unity and will support peaceful solution to any crisis in the...
All right, but thank you. We have your first newspaper, and let's quickly go through that. There's some stories to above the nameplate of the Authority newspaper. Southeast governors, others hold special prayers for Igbo. That's on page 4. The federal government begins trial of Red Doctor and other papers of Boko Haram terrorists on page 4 of Authority. CBN bankers open talks on interest rates today. That's on page 6. And then militants attack vessel, kill three crew members, is on page 4. And now the striking headline here: only lazy leaders oppose restructuring, says Atiku, as the former vice president. Now to quit active politics within 10 years. That's a rider to that headline. Now, I believe the photograph will have defend Nigeria's unity, Governor Lalong tells journalists. And that's how we will round off this segment on Good Morning Nigeria. We're thanking Bayo for being here and a good time to be part of this segment. Thank you, Bayo.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So Good Morning Nigeria, and we are now heading for a break. When we return, we will go to the background that will set the stage for this morning's conversation.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
I was distressed to notice that some of the comments, especially in the social media, have crossed our national red lines by daring to question our collective existence as a nation. This is a step too far.
One nation bound in freedom. Peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA. Whenever pain occurs, you want quick relief. Try new Nurofen Express. It goes to the source of pain and gets to work in under 15 minutes. That's why Nurofen Express delivers fast and effective relief. New Nurofen Express works at the source of pain. Fast.
Being a mom is great, but when your child has a fever, you don't know what to do. I trust Nurofen for Children to take care of my child's pain and fever.
Effective relief you can trust.
Hi guys, look how my baby Jamil has grown. And as they grow, there's a worry we all share, skin rash. Some use lotions or petroleum jelly, but I found what works for Jamil is Nigerian Pampers. It has built-in lotion to help protect his delicate skin and keep him dry. Jam Jam. Good morning, happy Jam Jam. Dry and soft and no sign of a rash. Join many other moms and try Nigerian Pampers with lotion. Let's beat the rash.
Dental Team is visiting schools to teach children how to protect themselves from diseases. Did you know how we get illnesses like diarrhea, cough, and cold? They are spread through germs on your hands. Your hands collect germs that causes diseases. You pick up germs from any surface like window wash your hands after going to the toilet while playing. And then you can get sick because of germs. That's why you need to fight germs to stay healthy by washing your hands regularly with Dettol soap to protect from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Wash your hands. What you have to do is wash your hands. Dettol soap every day. Wash your hands.
To the disobey traffic law to cause accidents. Me, I don't talk, say, I nobody do am again because change begins with me. Let's cross the other side of the road.
I will no longer endanger my life crossing the express. Instead, I will use the bridge because change begins with me.
Oga driver, stop this bus now, won't come down. I be one carry me pass where they go.
Make I dey stop anyhow for road, they cause traffic wahala and accidents. So I go dey stop for the right bus stop because change begins with me.
Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Another edition of TV Guide magazine is out with revealing accounts of trending stories. With the dwindling oil revenue, he says there is no reason to worry.
We strongly believe that culture is Nigeria's new oil, and we're going to show that by creating wealth, our art and culture will be a statement for all of us.
Our cover story is on Otumba Olusegun Mochwe, Director General, National Council for Arts and Culture. The upcoming TV presenters, Elegant Elizabeth Banu, tells you what it takes. A peep into the activities of the Presidential Committee on the Northeast Initiative, a mandate being fulfilled. A trip to the Yankari Games Reserve at Safari in Bauchi State brings you closer to nature. And the Oshun Oshobo Festival, our culture, our pride. Professor Adiku, the Vice Chancellor, University of Abuja, tells us what it means to manage a university, plus our regular features, star profile, media issues, relationships, young minds, entertainment, sports, and lots more. Pick your copy now at Professors or at every NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, still your indispensable companion.
If you just tuned in, the program is Good Morning Nigeria and shown live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, Timothy Yusuf is ready with a background report to kickstart our discussion this morning, taking a look at local content in the construction industry in Nigeria.
Experts say the Nigerian construction industry since the attainment of independence has been dominated by expatriate construction companies. Apparently, disturbed by this ugly development, Nigerian engineers and other experts and stakeholders have been waging unfruitful battles to redress the trend. Findings show that the arguments often advanced by the government at the federal and state levels for preferring foreign contractors include alleged incompetence of local contractors, some of whom mismanage funds collected for projects, and the inability of indigenous firms to buy the construction equipment required to execute most heavy construction and engineering projects, among many others. The good news, however, came when the federal government more than 3 years ago announced that all engineering and construction projects below 5 billion naira will be handled by Nigerian contractors who possess the requisite capability. This initiative, those who know explained, is aimed at protecting indigenous entrepreneurs and promoting local content in the construction sector. This policy is therefore a deliberate effort by the federal government to help build local capacity and promote local content in the industry. It is also aimed at reversing the domination of the Nigerian engineering and construction industry by expatriates, with investigations showing that over 80% of the capital budget of all tiers of government in Nigeria is being expended in the construction and engineering industry. It is regrettable that the construction industry is still being dominated by foreign contractors. Analysts argue that substantial part of the major construction and engineering projects in Nigeria is executed by expatriates, thereby creating a huge capital flight. They say this obviously should not be the case, as no nation can develop solely by relying on the expertise of foreign nationals. Indigenous technology must therefore be developed, especially in construction and complex engineering projects. As Good Morning Nigeria focuses on the need for increased local content in the construction industry in Nigeria, what is the disposition of the present administration towards growing local engineering competencies?
We're now being joined in the studio by the president of the Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, Korean, in the person of Engineer Kashim Ali. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
And also chairman of the Nigerian Institute of Highway Engineers, Usman Moabino. Mr. Moabino, you're welcome. Whatever engineer Moabino, you're welcome. Thank you.
It's actually the pioneer chairman, like indicated. Also with us in the studio in Abuja, we'd like to welcome at this point Engineer Adokolo Mokwolu, is the Deputy President of the Nigerian Society of Engineers. Engineer Mokwolu, thank you very much for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
And in our Lagos studio, we'd like to welcome the President of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, Engineer Otis Ayanji. Engineer Ayanji, good to have you join us on the program as well.
Good morning.
And joining us via Skype from Port Harcourt is the Chief Executive Officer of Income Electric Limited, Engineer Matt Debbie. Engineer Debbie, good morning to you.
Ma'am.
All right. Okay, gentlemen,
all right. Gentlemen, it's indeed, we are indeed glad to have you join us this morning on Good Morning Nigeria, and we have a huge issue on our hands this morning. Now, local content is actually said to be the basic principle of nation building, because invariably, when we look at the development of any nation with respect to infrastructure, there's a huge amount of money and expertise, going on there, and when it is not sourced locally, it becomes a problem. And let me begin with Engineer Kashim Ali of Korean.
Thank you very much, and thank you, NT, for putting a spotlight on this issue, which has been on for a long time. As you rightly said, if you don't have the local component for developing an economy like ours or anyone at all, it makes it very expensive, and then you may not get the best. because usually people who go out of their countries to other nations go in search of one thing or the other. It's not goodwill they go to sell. They go to look for money. And then, so money is primary. But for an indigenous person, money is not the primary thing. He wants to make a name, he wants to contribute to the development of his environment because it's his fatherland. So those are the issues that we have avoided over the years. Unfortunately, we have enough reasons not to do what we are doing. Most of the African countries, the North African countries, when you talk about Tunisia, Algeria, Egypt, Morocco, this is what they have done over the years. That even though they are comparatively poorer in some extent than us, they have better infrastructure because from the beginning they looked at the situation where, okay, I want to develop this infrastructure. I don't have the requisite personnel to do it. They say, okay, go out, go and look for people who can help you do it. They did it, in fact, the beginning was Egypt. When Gafar Nasser wanted to build the stadium, the first stadium in Egypt, they were going to host a game. And he said he would not give it to any foreign contractor. He wanted my Egyptian engineers to do it themselves. Whatever he couldn't do, go and look for help in that area. But certainly you must do it. So they brought in a few people to help them, and they built it. It may not look beautiful, it didn't look aesthetically appealing, but it was very functional, and it was stable to take the population that it was supposed to take. Over the years they have grown. Today, nobody comes to Egypt to do anything for them. The same thing to a country like Nigeria. They are war, but they are able to manage their economy well because they have internal capacity for doing whatever they want to do. If we have started doing that, which we started immediately after independence, we started again in just gave way. If it's with that kind of capacity that we're able to do the war, because war entry, no matter the problem that we have, they're able to refine their petroleum products, they're able to build even armament and everything. They do everything because they had that initial encouragement and capacity. That is the best and the only way that will bring sustainability to the development of any nation. Thank you.
Well, just as it's already started, we still want to take the different views from the guests. Basic principle of building a nation, local content is desired. Wow, we're not getting it. Engineer Mokolo.
Thank you very much. The reason why we are not getting it, there are quite many, but one of them is that first, there is no desire to be proud of ourselves as a nation. I want to just give a quick example. If you go to a restaurant, for example, you're a young man and you've just started a job, and you go to the restaurant to always eat food, people are making profit from you, yes. But if you cannot cook and then you get your own, restaurant and get your people to come and manage it, you see that you'll be eating and at the same time you'll be servicing other people. The truth is that we've not really, been able to get to a situation where we will be proud that this is what I have done. And essentially, this issue of local content will address so many other issues, in Nigeria, like security. People have jobs to do. Because foreigners coming to our country, they are coming to profit. Another thing is that it is very, very wrong for any nation to have a structure whereby taxpayers' money is contributed by its own people into the Commonwealth will be given to a foreigner to come and profit from. For what reason? Because that is what they call in economics capital flight. And any nation that is like us, who do not get its revenue from first products that it can even control, both in price and in exploration, then you must take local content very, very seriously. But once we start it, we're going to go very far in a very great accelerated form to build a nation that is viable without all these other social problems that we will be having.
All right, let's go to Lagos Blessing, where Engineer Ayoji is. And Engineer Ayoji is the president of Nigerian Society of Engineers. And with that position, that is the umbrella body of practicing engineers in Nigeria. And I do want to believe that that association also has as members owners of local construction firms in Nigeria. Engineer Ayoji, what happened, or what is actually happening? Are you in a better position to let Nigerians know?
Thank you. What has been happening is that the government has not really bothered about the participation of its citizens in the economic activities of the country. And that is not just only engineers, but because of the weight of capital expenditure leaning more on engineering, it is more acutely felt there. And when you talk about the participation of engineering firms in an economy, we are talking, of course, at the intellectual level of those who are involved in consulting engineering, those involved in engineering contracting, those involved in manufacturing, those involved in many services, engineering services, those involved in various maintenance, repair and fabrication activities, and also those involved in vendoring of machinery and equipment and engineering materials. And if you go through this, you will find that the jobs on these various categories of engineering businesses have always gone out. And the excuse is that Nigerian firms don't have the experience, which is no excuse at all, because it is the responsibility of the government to implement that local content policy, whatever name you call it. And the bedrock of that, the foundation for implementation of local content, is the government responsibility to guarantee workload for these various firms. And guaranteeing workload is so important because even when you gradually give out a job to an engineering firm and they do it and finish, and then in another 5 years there's no job coming there, they will just unlearn whatever has been learned. So various countries make it a point of duty to continue to give jobs to their local firms so that their experience will increase and they will continue to be of use. Now, the other issue that has been absent in the area of, say, construction, engineering contractors, an element of costing for engineering contracting is construction equipment procurement. And countries take it very seriously. But even though it is factored in the calculations for foreign firms here, that is not done for local firms, because if the local firms were to insist on that, they just will be thrown out. And that is an investment for the country. And in places where it is properly done, if you take a typical state in the United States, their contractors are encouraged through the contracting process to procure equipment. And when this is procured, it is recognized as a national asset. And that also, because construction itself is always attracting a large pool of personnel, that joined with this investment the country has made in procuring equipment, that organization must be kept busy. And so even if it means that a road that has not really run its life course is to be repaired, they will do that and continue to do so. And I think that is what needs to be done here. When you begin to do that, you will mop up most of the labor that exists, most of the skills. I mean, people keep talking about professionals roaming about. Engineers don't have job 5 years, 10 years after graduating. If we apply this local content principle, especially across the economy, because government has taken a bold step since 2010 to to introduce formally by statute local content development in the oil and gas sector. But that simply is not enough. They are already moving. If you follow the activities of the Nigerian Content Development Monitoring Board, they already have made quite some progress in the oil sector. I believe if we spread it out to all the sectors, that Nigeria will not only begin to tick economically, but I don't think we will have idle hands, around.
All right, thank you very much, Engineer Ayeji. Now, we also introduced earlier journalist Vesca from Port Harcourt. I still have a guest here who have not spoken, but let's feel the pulse of Engineer Mata Devi in Port Harcourt. Now, this is a great concern to you engineers on lack of patronage or no patronage of Nigerian engineers in terms of what is your own experience, your company's experience?
Yeah, our experience has been terrific. You see, our lack of local content practice in Nigeria is going to go a long way in undermining our national security and development of capacity locally. What we see here is most clients, or most of our federal clients and others, seem to blame the local companies on inability to deliver. But they put everybody on the same playing ground, the same playing field, and expect the local companies to be able to compete on international procurement bidding process. The Nigerian engineers, when they end up bidding for these projects, for which were particular examples, we struggle, really struggle to be able to deliver irrespective of our capacity. Knowledge-wise, a lot of us senior engineers in this country have been able to compete favorably everywhere, nationally and internationally. But when you go to bid for a project in Nigeria, for example, and you're bidding with a lot of the Chinese and Indian companies, remember that the Chinese company has an interest charge of about 2% per annum. Apart from that, he has an export rebate from his country of about 15%. Inclusive to this, he also has very good banking terms. He's giving loans with moratoriums of 1 year plus and all that. So before you even start the bid, the Nigerian engineer has about 30% disadvantage compared to the others. So as a result, what happens is the Chinese and the Indians and the foreigners seem to win all the contracts because the local companies are completely disadvantaged even from the beginning. This is creating a huge gap in our development, as our local engineers are getting continuously underdeveloped. If you look at the country today, the middle level engineering people are almost non-existent. We have very sharp young men who are there able to do it. We have very senior engineers with lots of experience, but lack of capital. Our interest charges here are so heavy, like engineering you just said. To be involved in infrastructure construction, you require a lot of equipment. We are unable to procure this equipment because you get a job today, you are not going to get a job until another 5 years. You are going to default on all your bank loans and all that, and the banks are no longer encouraged to support you. So it is very pertinent that the government takes it very seriously and deliberately to develop local content. The oil and gas industry is already trying, but the civil, the power and the other parts of the engineering, the mechanical installations and all that are almost impossible for local engineers because one, they do not have the right equipment to do this. A lot of them are not trained because they have not been involved in the job. You won't be given the job because they say you don't have the experience yet, and you cannot get the experience without being given the job. So our view as indigenous contracting companies and engineering companies is that the government needs to make a deliberate effort to give jobs to local companies, create an advantage for them by giving them price advantage, make available capital and funding for them to be able to get the right equipments. The Nigerian Society of Engineers has tried a lot in trying to insist on trainings and bringing up standards that we must all adhere to. But all this will go to nothing if there's nowhere to practice it on. Again, our teaching in the school today, there's a lot of gap between what is taught in the classroom and what is practiced on the field. A lot of international work today is from the classroom to the market. So our teaching curriculum also needs to address this, to develop our engineers in a way that when they come out of the classroom, by being involved in cooperatives, training programs during their learning process, so that when they come out, they are well equipped to be able to face what needs to be done. But the role of government basically is they need to support us in being able to get the capital to get equipment. They need to support us with low interest charges and funding. The people need to be paid on time so that they can be able to develop confidence in the banks.
Thank you so much. We will return to you in a short while. But just to say that this issue is multi-dimensional. It's not just the capacity or capability of Nigerian engineers, but again, other things follow. The bank advantage, being disadvantaged at the point of even before the bidding and all of that. Now, engineer Boanimo, you are the chairman of Nigerian Institute of Highway Engineers. Let's share your experience in all of this.
Well, I want to say, first and foremost, I'm the pioneer chairman of the Institute of Highway Engineers. My experience on all of this actually will be from one or two sectors of the economy. And they actually is quite bad to the extent that I can tell you we need a fuel analysis of this particular sector. I will realize that the total amount of jobs out of 206 ongoing projects, the total percentage of jobs that went to the locals was just about 35%. When you turn that into actual monetary value for what the job worth, you discover that about 95% of the monetary value of the project given out goes to the foreign companies. Only about 5% or thereabout is now within the locals. What does that translate to? When you get a huge budget, for example, in a sector, everybody in Nigeria will be maybe pleased that that sector now has sufficient money to go ahead and deliver infrastructure. You discover that the truth about it is that the moment that sector realizes its money and pays its contractors, you don't get that translated down to the market. You don't get that translated down to Nigeria. And the reason is simple. Much of the money goes to the foreign firms in terms of payment for the job they have done. And they, of course, take it down to their home base. So the money doesn't circulate within Nigeria, and so we remain stagnant the way we are. That translates to social evils, it translates to insecurity, it translates to so many other things. Now, the issue of having to get a job as an engineer, I recall that in the 80s, it was easy for even a student engineer to get a placement in a construction company, because that time, most of the construction companies were actually Nigerian companies. It was easy for you to get a placement, and so you would build up both the theory in the school and the actual capacity on the ground, even as a student. And it was also very easy when you graduate to go and get a job. But now that is completely different. Why is it different? There's now a lot of discrimination, if I want to use that word, within that industry. In the 70s, 80s, it really didn't matter there was no limitation to what a Nigerian company could do. There was no discrimination in terms of the procurement processes.
So why is it prevalent now? If what transpired in the 70s where we thought, okay, we're not even strong enough to do that, and now today there's more outlook to technology and other areas of expertise that every engineer will have gone through. Why are we having such a data?
We're having the problem because the various governments, not necessarily this government, the various governments have not seen clearly the need to actually make it a deliberate policy to have their own professionals to deliver on projects. And that translates, of course, to the fact that you can't build capacity, just like other people have tried to emphasize. And that also translates to the fact that you really cannot do what you could do earlier. In essence, the system is getting worse, as it were, because we are not able to deliver on a lot of things. I think the government should have a deliberate policy of having engineers or having Nigerian construction firms. For example, there is this issue of limiting 500 million as a limit to what Nigerian firms can construct. I think it's a very bad policy, to the extent that it means you have only allowed the local firms to assess relatively nothing, because most of the contract that comes out now, they are well above 500 million. Only about 5% actually within that range. So even if you give local firms about 200 of them at 500 million, and you give one foreign firm 20 billion or 30 billion, it follows up everything. So we really have not done anything. I think we should have a deliberate policy to try to give all the jobs to the Nigerian firm. Let the Nigerian firm decide what capacity is able to deliver, and when it's not able to deliver, it has some challenges in terms of complexity of the job, it can now on its own decide to partner with a foreign firms to ensure that that job is delivered. We need to have some basic trust in ourselves to be able to deliver.
Thank you very much, Engineer Mwabino. Now, Engineer Kashin, we'll come back to you. Let's get back to the president in Lagos at the Nigerian Society of Engineers. Engineer Mwabino here talked about issue of policy, which already there are several policies taking a look at what should be done with local content, and like we all agree, what is being done in the oil and gas industry is key, and those of you in these other areas are also looking forward to having the construction industry have a bite of what local content should actually do. Now, I think sometime last month, the minister well, the federal government now, because it is represented right there at a program, actually looked at the focus of the administration's view to come up with local content to this industry, and of course those of you who were there received such with great enthusiasm. Now, how has policy really, or how has policies over the year actually undermine what Nigerian engineers could do, and in what direction do you think policies could be restructured to actually favor engineers in nation today?
Thank you. I will actually start with an example. Everybody has said we hadn't any local content direction or policy before the mid-2000s, and the president in 2005 was desirous of implementing a program of 7 medium-sized power stations. And the first contract to be negotiated on that was the design consultancy for the entire program. And at the commencement of the negotiation, the Minister of Power at the time contacted the chairman of the committee that was handling the negotiation and said the president has directed that Nigerian firms must participate in each of the contracts to the extent of at least 25%. And so that made it mandatory that each foreign company that was coming was going to have a Nigerian partner firm. And what then happened was that in the fullness of the scoping of that program, about 120 firms were involved, but 83 of them were Nigerian firms. And Nigerian firms have gone to do very spectacular projects in that program, including a switching station for 330 kV, switching station in Ikote, which was commissioned by the federal government last year, November. And it's one of the most spectacular projects that have been done in Nigeria and was done by a Nigerian company. There are other projects that they have done like that. And so, leading on from that opportunity that was given to Nigerians, we now got into a formal law for local content, which I had said earlier that the correct thing to do is to spread it across the entire economy, so that all the activities going on in the various sectors, Nigerians will be involved. And one thing that Nigerians really have not taken note of is the discriminatory and disrespectful attitude of the procurement process in Nigeria, at least at the federal level, whereby when you read the request for proposals or expression of interest for projects and programs coming up in Nigeria, you will find that what is said is, one of the criteria that the companies are to be judged on is that you have to show evidence of local partnership. And that means that you are targeting that job to foreigners. I think if anything, as had been said by Engineer Moabino, if anything at all like that is going to be done, it should really be evidence of foreign partnership, in which case it means that assignment is targeted to Nigerian companies, who in any case are the owners of these things that are happening in their own economy. So that is really what we need to go on with. And I think that the government in the last 2 months has really begun to go in that direction. We are waiting an executive order from the Attorney General on the decision by the Federal Executive Council to use Nigerian funds for projects coming up in Nigeria. And the underlying principle also is that when that is done, the Nigerian firms ought to be able to determine what level of assistance they need from foreign firms if they do. And then, work on with them in some partnership, but with Nigerian firms leading. That the Federal Executive Council has done something on, and I hope that soon the Attorney General should come out with the executive order so that the implementation of that can commence. And you will just see that what the First Republic tried to do, the subsequent republics just didn't bother at all, because in the First Republic, the University of Nigeria, I attended University of Nigeria, and I knew that the buildings there were built by Nigerian contractors in the late 50s. And they all looked similar. They all were properly done and quite functional. And all those buildings are still functioning till today. They were built by, and these contractors were trained by the colonial government. They went out of their way to train them to be able to do various jobs. Even on the railway we are talking about, Nigerian firms did rail extension. They did a lot of earthworks. They did a lot of other activities that they used to extend the rail to various parts of the north. And it was the decision of the colonial people plus the First Republic government to make sure that Nigerians developed such capacity and helped them in the various projects and programs that they have set out for the development of the country.
Indeed, and one other person would have loved to put to you, but not right away, because we are returning to our Abuja studio here, where the president of Korean is seated, and that is the concern of whether we all talked about deliberate attempts to see how Nigerian firms can be directly properly engaged in the construction industry. Now, what about the interfacing between engineers and government? From what Engineer Ayeji said now, there is hope, that in due course that the implementation could follow. And as also mentioned, we've had, in the 50s and 60s, even 70s and early 80s, we used to have FGN construction, greenfield construction. These are all these construction firms in Nigeria. They fizzled out. In the mid-80s and early 90s, they all fizzled out. And what we were hearing was just either George Berger or CCC and all of that, and that has continued. Now, as the man in charge of regulating the practice of engineering in Nigeria, what about this interface we talked about?
that is anything going to work? How, to what extent, have you and your organization gone to stamp your feet down on the fact that Nigeria needs local content in the construction industry?
Thank you very much. Actually, our problem is, again, you can summarize it by saying implementation problem. Because even the Current Act and the Immigration Act, they are quite clear on how foreigners will come in and the mode of their engagement, but nobody seems to have respected that over the years. Let me briefly talk about this issue of the 500 million naira project limit. It was an affirmative action by the government of President Obasanjo. Really, it was derived from also a struggle by engineers because of almost total exclusion at that time. And in absolutely going forward, any project not more than 500 million should not be awarded to any foreigner. But even within the government, such projects were given to Lebanese. Unfortunately, there was no implementation. So that was it. Before then, during the PTF years, there was a practice that happened where there was a deliberate action to engage people. What they did, for instance, if your capacity was low, they would pay you with somebody who had high capacity. But so that as part of the job you're doing, you're also learning what you get paid. That way they need to build a lot of capacity. We stop that problem. The problem is this blowing hot and cold on a continuous basis in our country. So that again fizzled out. When President Buhari came, our expectation was that, having been the leader of the PTF team that developed that program, that they sustained it as a national program, which is also in consonance with our existing laws, whether the Foreign Act, Immigration Act, and NOTAP, and even many of the existing laws in Nigeria. But unfortunately, that didn't happen initially. But there's hope now, because the Federal Executive Council came up with some guidelines. In fact, they issued about 40 specific instructions on how projects will be planned, managed, and maintained. The one that major projects should be given to Nigerian contractors and consultants in the award of major projects bordering on science, technology, and engineering. That's specific. So they also say where the Nigerian firm is partners with a foreign firm, the Nigerian firm should lead. The meaning of that is what I said earlier, the practice of the North African country. If you ask me now to build this studio, and I know that my knowledge and expertise is a bit rudimentary, and I know that I can go to Germany and I get people who help me build a fantastic studio for you, I will go there, partner with the person, but I will want to engage the person. He will help me build it, and I will learn from that, so that the next time I have another studio to do, I would have to some expertise. That is the way it is done. That's just all we're asking. But now that the guideline is out and it's clear, it has provided solution to that. But the fear, as always, is that we have had such beautiful programs in the past that didn't work. We are just hoping that this time it will work. But again, we need to translate it from being just executive orders or guidelines to law. For instance, in the oil and gas sector, and many people, unfortunately, the information about them is not very much in the open, so much for everybody. The law is clear. For instance, the Nigerian Content Management Board, before any award is made in the oil and gas, any contract is given, issued in the oil and gas sector, they have to give a no objection. And the no objection is purely in line with the laws guiding them. About 70%, the intention to build up to 70% local content. That a project, you could have many components. For instance, the typical Bunga project, for instance, have components for fabrication, engineering, and all the rest. Now, every element is taken on its own merit. Which one do we have capacity in Nigeria? For instance, before we couldn't do fabrication in Nigeria, but there are many fabrication rights now arising from the local content, from the existence of the act. and implementation by the board. The board also has also helped in providing, in some instances, capital, in some instances, giving some support to companies to have this institution set up. So now, they have also done, the last one they did recently, is to also provide, in conjunction with the Bank of Industry, a platform where Nigerian firms can access single-digit loans from the bank, so that the things we're asking that should be done in the entire sector where Nigerian funds are expended, both in science, in technology, in engineering, whether we are contracting.
Engineer Kasumali, when we return from this break, because we're about to go on a break now, we'll take a look at such areas. I like a question you already asked yourself. In what area is our strength or our capacity to actually move forward, whether it's in totality or in parts? When we return from this break, we'll still be with our gentlemen engineers as we look into local content in the construction industry in Nigeria. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We'll be right back after this break.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words. Run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
It's about that time. States across the country coming together for one purpose, one goal. They are young. They are solution providers. The NTA ETV Children's Expo 2017, holding at the NTA Arena, Area 11, Garki, Abuja, with the theme Renewable Energy, Industrialization, Arts and Agriculture as tools to bring Nigeria out of economic recession, with sub-themes post-harvest processing and preservation, and using arts and crafts to promote tourism. Dates 22nd to 27th October 2017. This expo is open to ages 6 to 12 years for junior category and 13 to 18 years for the senior category. It's about the art, science and technology expo. For sponsorship consideration, please call the following numbers.
You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We thank you for staying with us up to this moment. Many Nigerians are beginning to react to the topic for this morning's conversation, and we have them by way of tweets. And I have the first one here from Gilbert AM. He says, until the engineering sector is censored, Korean is completely disconnected from the government. Local content is a mere dream and wish.
From Dylan Jack Solomon is just tweet, my moderators, local content in our construction industry is sine qua non to our upgrading to first world. We need to localize our people.
Now, Obadia Ezra Tanko, will the graduates of a civil engineer in Nigeria are facing challenges because quacks have taken over, leaving us wondering.
Cecilia Okoroma says Nigerians are skilled and they have the capacity. If only we change from attitude of it's our turn to have a piece of the national cake.
Melly the Epic Pen says local content in construction industry lies at the heart of government's drive to tackle jobs, build capacity and boost the economy. Let's end lip service.
Clifford Agugwese has a straight power is the infrastructure of all infrastructures. It must be copiously available and affordable to support our local content.
Now, Festus Akimbera, if we must develop our local talent, create jobs and build a competitive local supply base.
And from Innocent Yawal James, his own focus is that the problem of local engineers in Nigeria is attitude and faithfulness to work. Federal government has a lot to do in promoting local content.
All right, Dr. Solomon, this is good for us. It will give construction industry the leverage to upgrade and dominate activities with minimal competition from foreign companies. And that's the much we have for now. I know more could be coming before we round off today's edition of the program. Now, we return to Lagos for obvious reasons. And Mr. Ejionikolu, we'll come back to you after Lagos for obvious reasons. And I'd like to ask you, Engineer Anyeji, are Nigerian firms really are capable? Are they capable? Do they have the capacity to procure the earth-moving, huge, very expensive equipment required for local construction? And now something is lacking here, some say, and that is some kind of cohesion, some kind of collaboration between 2, 3, 4 firms, as the case may be, to form a big firm, and not me and my sons limited, and you think that government is going to give you a contract worth billions of dollars. So how do you reconcile this to what is happening presently in the construction industry as it affects the local content?
Thank you. Nigerian firms certainly are capable and competent, and they have, despite all the difficulties, demonstrated that time and time again. Like I said, they are not given a level playing field in terms of compensation. They don't get exactly what is allowed to the foreign firms in order to also help in the management side, in the administration side, and building such infrastructure around their activities. But if, despite that, they have been doing exactly what is expected of functioning construction or consulting firms. And if I go back again to the example I gave before, during the National Integrated Power Project, NIPP, the biggest transformer in the grid system, a 300 MVA transformer, a Nigerian firm built the substation in Abuja and Alabo, with that. And in fact, it is part of what is being expanded now. But the criteria that have been drawn out for the expansion of the work the Nigerian companies did now excludes the Nigerian companies as not being qualified to do the expansion of what they originally did. So these are some of the problems that we have been complaining about, not just in the power sector. Recently, in the rail sector, it is the same thing. Where the minister came out and said a program of $20 billion that Nigerians would not participate in it, even though the president had given a directive that they should work out how Nigerians will participate, Nigerian firms will participate in such. So these are the issues, and there are certain aspects of all these jobs that you really shouldn't export to other people, not Nigerians. I cannot see how it works. It works should be calculated, as part of dollar expenditure. I cannot see, how, all those side preparatory activities and so on certainly ought to be done by Nigerians. But Nigerians are competent to do even more. And as has been advocated and as the government has begun to accept, if the job is given to a Nigerian firm and there is some limit of what it could do, it should be free together with the client authorities to determine the partnership we could strike with foreign firms, and they'll be able to do the job that is being given. And that is the only way of making that happen. Because if Nigerian firms don't do big jobs, they never will know how to do big jobs. They have to be given that opportunity, and they get trained and perfected in that. And if we look at our records, certainly there are precedences of performance, good performance, whether it is in building power stations, in building substations, in building transmission lines, in building gas lines. Nigerian firms have been building gas pipelines of various dimensions, including those human beings can actually walk through. And I think that we just have to keep supporting the Nigerian firms, and Nigeria will change. Everybody will be mopped up if we begin to do that, and there will be peace. Everywhere in all sectors, we will even be looking for people to do certain levels of job like they are doing in America.
Thank you very much, Engineer IAG. Now back to us in the Abuja studio. The incoming president for the Nigerian Society of Engineers is also here. Engineer Adokole Mokolo, now deputy president, is incoming. And I'm sure over the years, growing concerns are there, both for Nigerians, at the maybe at the federal government level, or to whatever level of government, is looking at what kind of quality of jobs engineers here have executed or have participated in. We've had issues of building collapsing here and there, job done on the roads, good enough. The highway chair of the road highways issues are here, as well as other areas. We talked about issue of capacity, and now we're looking at the position of actually leveraging on that with the policy now which has been considered. Now, when do we begin to warehouse some of all these areas of concern, and how is the Nigerian Society of Engineers rising to actually understand that?
Well, the thing is that our history, I think, as a country, is what has led us to start talking about local content, because we were colonized at one time or the other. But almost 60 years after independence, we shouldn't be talking about local content again. The reason is that whatever the problems we may be having as a nation, we should know that there is nobody that can love this country more than its citizens. Any foreigner coming to this place is just coming to profit. And that's the reason why we say that it is even immoral for you to call a foreigner to come and profit from the sweat of your people. They can bring their own money if they want to make have an investment in Nigeria. That's very understandable. But to say, look, my people cannot do it, so you come and do it. What you do is you build the capacity to do it. It's as simple as that. I want to quickly also say that when people say, oh, collapse building, let them bring one engineer that is responsible for collapse building. Where in the country there is no master plan for developing a place, there is no process of development control, there is no process of building approvals in most of the places here. I mean, most of the locations. So the point is this: if you are a citizen of Nigeria, it is here that you can profit from. Your well-being is dependent on the government that you have chosen to be responsible for your well-being.
So should we do this to the disregard of some of those areas of no building plans, no proper structure to actually drive
that? That is what.
So whose responsibility is that?
It's governance. It's the government that should do it. I cannot do it. I can help government to do it, but I cannot enforce it. And anything that cannot be enforced, it's zero. Now another thing is that government too, at one time or the other, when we advocate, like the Nigerian Society of Engineers will advocate, we advocated for the National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure way back in 1992. My colleagues are here, they will bear me witness that for days we did not sleep putting these things together. Thank God it was a military rule at that time under
General Babangida, and this thing was able to be passed into law. But up to today, and General Babangida, the president of the country, is now an act. The president of the country is supposed to be the chairman of that board, and 1% of what is generated, as income, federal income, is supposed to fund this agency. Since that time up to now, well, I don't know why. Maybe that 1% is somewhere, I don't know. But the thing is that 1% is not available to the agency, and this is what is supposed to build capacity in so many areas. You can't depend on foreigners. And another thing is this: the time is now for us to really look inwards. All over the world, the developed world are saying that they don't need oil again because of climate change. They are saying that in 20 years' time, they are not going to have cars using petrol. So what are we going to do? And lastly, look, the resources of every country is the brain.
Yes.
It's not the oil or whatever. Develop the brain. And the brain cannot develop if there are no infrastructure, to back it up.
All right. Honestly, speaking from what has happened over the years now, there is a glaring neglect of science, technology, and innovation. And it is fighting back, because if our engineers, if we have all it takes, all the engineering infrastructure required in this country, we wouldn't be talking about local content. We have gone beyond that, by now. Now, let's discuss another aspect of local content here. That is, even when foreigners are given the opportunity to function here in Nigeria as contractors, they also import what ought to have come from Nigeria as local content, import them. For instance, drivers, truck drivers, operators, and what have you. And that is talking about expatriate quota now. Now, let's go to our man via Skype in Port Harcourt to actually coming here, because we understand that you are an expert in this area. So what can we do with respect to expatriate quota and all the units of engineering practice?
The expatriate quota, I think there's a provision in our expatriate quota law that says for every expat you bring in, they must be on the studies. But today, I think the expatriate quota law is being misapplied. That when companies request for expatriate quota, actually the foreign embassies are supposed to check the qualifications of these people to ensure that the local talents are not available to do those same jobs. But I don't think this is being done very well, that we end up seeing a lot of expatriates that come around flexing themselves as experts. By the time you engage them for a period of time, you realize that they are the lowest rung of the profession in their place, and they are much less qualified than our people. Digressing a little bit, I want to further reinforce what Engineer Angie said regarding our procurement strategy, whereby we talk about companies with foreign partners as against companies with local partners as against local companies with foreign partners. I think it has come to a time that we take this thing to the next level. What the NSC, the Korean are doing today are actually protecting the future, the capability, the capacity and sufficiency and security of this country for the future. And we should all put our hands together, the government, to ensure that this happens. And this should start right from the procurement process by ensuring that local companies that have some competence and capability, possibly not all of it, are the people called for these projects, and they need to fill that gap by getting strategic alliances from companies that have the other competencies, and they end up learning those as against the other way around, where we get the foreign companies and they bring our engineers in, and most of them are used as timekeepers and whatever, and they refuse to be taught even the right things to do. Another approach could actually be towards the area of mega corporations. If we look at companies like Daewoo and most of the Chinese companies in this country, they are all government-owned companies in their place that are used to incubate smaller companies. If we create mega corporations just like we have Transcorp, or we encourage an aggregation of local companies, then from those big corporations from which we also import foreign skills and talent and machinery and equipment, new smaller companies can be incubated and jump out of this system. And before we know it, we have a lot of Nigerian local companies that are able to do it. We also need to go away from the procurement process from which we give contracts to our political associates, all commerce who are not professionals in that business that the contracts are being given. Because at the end of the day, it comes up and people say the Nigerian companies are not performing. But when you give a tomato seller a job to build a 330 kV substation, there's likelihood of failure. But like Engineer said, the guys that did the substations in Lagos, Income Electric, the company are run. We've been able to build a lot of substations, transmission lines and all that. These things are not rocket science. They are things that we're able to do very, very easily. But the opportunity and the procurement process needs to be adjusted such that Nigerians are highly favored.
Thank you very much indeed, Engineer Adevi. We are back to the studio here where Engineer Usman Boabino is, and this man is a champion when it comes to highway engineering. Now, how much of local content do we have in highway engineering? Because if I understand what it means that you are into road construction and what have you. So, how far in this regard with respect to local content in road construction?
Using the people, human capital, local resources.
Exactly. And I think I should start this by saying that building a road is not rocket science. There are no complexities in anything to do with road construction that, to my view, require any involvement of a foreign firm. They are simple, straightforward processes that any basic engineer, any basic contracting firm with the right equipment. I want to underline that.
So can local routes
with the right equipment.
6 months when local contracting.
I'm coming to that. With the right equipment, construction of a road in anywhere in the world is not rocket science. It can be done by the locals. You need the right equipment to get it done. Now, having said that, we realize that the processes involved in road construction is in most cases equipment intensive, because you are going to be dealing with earth-moving equipment, which none of them is being manufactured here in Nigeria. And that again is another key. In the 70s and in the 80s, we used to have vendors of these equipment right here in Nigeria that we would give it to you on lease or on hire purchase. And then once you have a job of certain capacity, knowing that you are going to use that equipment, you know where to go to either lease it or hire it for that purpose. In these days, we don't have those vendors anymore. They have left the country because of the situations in the economy and so on. We need to find a way to get the local people to have access to equipment. Once that is done, there is no rock science in issue of construction of roads.
So why is it taking us this long to actually even get involved in this construction of some equipment,
even procurement of the equipment?
I think the point should be made that, again, I will refer us back to the issues of policies and also issues of implementation of what policies we have. There's a construction policy which have outlined a lot of these things, but how much of it is being followed? There's a process leading to having to even give out a contract, which is the procurement process. There are requirements in the procurement process. If you listen initially to the president of the NSC, he has stated clearly and correctly too that within the requirements in the procurement process, you find out that Nigerian firms are deliberately exempted from participating. If for the first time Nigeria is doing a structure, for example, let me go back to the issue of rail. The rail we were consulted in the 50s and the 60s. We really came back to realize we did a rail sometime in 2000. And now you want to go for procurement in the rail, and you have said that within the last 5 years, within the last 10 years, you must have done this on the rail. It means already you are exempted in Nigeria from automatically.
Usman, time is no longer on our side now, and gentlemen, it is time to round off this edition of the program. We would like to take your final comments in just 20 seconds, if you can do that for us. And let's just start with Engineer Anyeji there in Lagos, the president of Nigerian Society of Engineers. Sir, your final comments with respect to solution.
Thank you. We have really not talked about the problem of manufacturing in Nigeria sufficiently during this talk, and again, that is not rocket science. It is a matter of investment and taking a decision that we will rather spend our money here to manufacture the inputs we need for the various infrastructure projects. And typically, the railway project is the place to start, because there is not a question of building a new factory. There is a factory in Nigeria, in Abuja specifically, that can produce rail with just some adjustments in the factory, and the cost of rail is about maybe 2/3 of these $20 billion we are talking about. And with a mere fraction of that, we can get those things manufactured, not just for the projects that are going on now, but it will continue manufacturing for another 25-30 years. So the government should look into manufacturing. And there are many other plants, not just that one, there are many other plants that if you put in a little money, you begin to get the products, and you will save a lot of money. You will save almost 90% of what you spend abroad for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Koren has a lot of work to do from the look of things.
Yeah, we're doing them. Actually, you see, government has taken the first step by issuing these guidelines. If they can see these guidelines through, we certainly will make progress, because it covers virtually all the areas that have been left out. Today, Nigerian engineers have capacity in engineering consulting and project management. So it will be criminal for any agency of government, for instance, to begin to invite anybody from outside to do this supervised projects. It's the most unpatriotic. Also that our learning process has improved. I'm sorry to say this, maybe you may not appreciate it, but government also through TED Fund supported the universities a great deal, and many of the universities that are accredited today are first class. But the point that are about to get admitted into the class of excellent and high quality engineering practice nations in the world.
Engineer Mokolo.
Yes. Mine is that let us look at the laws that have been passed to support local content, and let us obey them. NASEMI law, that is National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, is one of them. Let us look into that law passed in 1992. Let us obey them, and all the other policies that have to be implemented. Yes, and again, our money should not go to foreigners.
All right, sir. We'll stop you there, and let's go to Engineer Ahmad Devi in Port Harcourt. Your final thoughts, please, in just 10-20 seconds, please.
We should start this by our procurement, create price advantage for local companies, so that they will be able to compete favorably. I will encourage Koren and the Nigerian Society of Engineers to continue to create and continue to monitor adherence to standards within the country. And the federal government should encourage the banks, particularly Bank of Industry and others, to be able to support the local companies so that they are able to build capability in terms of equipment and tools. I think that will be all I want to give for now. Thank you.
That we conclude this edition of the program. We still have tools, but let's also say
goodbye to our friends who are in the studio throughout the program. And the Nigerian current President, Engineer Kashim Ali, we'd like to thank you for your time. We appreciate that. And also Osman Moabino, he's the Nigerian Institute of Highway Engineers. He's the chairman of Highway Engineers in Nigeria. Thank you also for being part of our show this morning. Your contribution has been worthwhile. And of course, the Deputy President of Nigerian Society of Engineers, Adekunle Mokolu, will see you when you become the NSC President in the next 3 months. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And the man that reached us via Skype in Port Harcourt, Engineer Matt Devi, is nice really talking to you this morning, and your contribution has been very fruitful. Thank you indeed. All right, let's quickly run through. Before you forgot the President. You can say goodbye to him. Okay. And you know, IG, thank you very much. He's the President of the Nigerian Society of Engineers. Don't mind Kirian. He almost left you out. So, okay. Anyway, quickly now to the tweets that we have received. Let's run through them and we'll come to wrap on the discussion. From Sandy Michael Omakoji, said, for this policy to work, we should do away with bandwagon effect that says foreign goods are better than ours. All right, Cecilia Okoroma says, giving priority to foreign companies for contracts is unholy, yet we need total attitudinal change to the project Nigeria.
Gilbert as a street, local content has been relegated to the bottom. As far as I know, we are better than those called experts. Censor the solution.
Olatunji Kamaldeen, the reason is simple. Capacity gets built over the years, and in fact, foreign firms were once local firms in their host country.
Sani Michael Makoja has another tweet. Said we should equally encourage our engineers with the needed infrastructure such as power, roads for cost-effective.
Jamiu Abayomi Sule, Korean, as a sign of seriousness, must ensure that contracts given to local firms by government are executed to international standard.
Change to progress. I've seen a lot of state projects managed by Nigerian engineers, and most of them have been terribly delivered. Most of the roads are bad within 1 year.
Okay, but we have this Gilbert thing. His comment is very interesting. Say, I have worked under a white man. I supervised firms start to finish, and all he does is come and take pictures, but he took the fat money to his country.
The change to progress also continues on the other one I started. I said Korean and NSE within states to ensure private monitoring of projects within their states and provide advice to state governments and on the jobs of their members. From Clifford Aguirre, our local content in construction industry aspiration must be supported with a robust manpower development template. Well, that's a much we can take. That's a powering in, but quickly now to our companion segment, top of which is sports.
Ghana as a